Hello, everyone. Welcome to season 2, episode 5 of my LinkedIn live series. I'm happy to have Eddiana Rosen here as my guest. She's a tech recruiter at Google. She's a content creator on LinkedIn. She's a public speaker as well. How are you doing today, Eddiana?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I'm a really big fan of your LinkedIn content. Your content does really well, and you have a lot of great perspectives to share today about our topic regarding LinkedIn content, personal branding, and interview tips. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen, for giving me the platform tonight. As Stephen said, my name is Eddiana, and I am a tech recruiter by day and a content creator by night. And I also do speaking gigs. So, what I in reality do is I've been a recruiter for 6.5 years, almost 7 now, and I've been in various industries like higher education, finance, communications, marketing, and now I am in tech for the first time ever, and I am loving it. And I'm a content creator usually to talk about career progression, career tips, specifically for first gen. I am a first gen, also an immigrant to this country, so I have different perspectives, as Stephen mentioned, and I am so happy to be here today to talk about LinkedIn content because LinkedIn has really truly changed my life when it comes to my career, and I want to make sure that we shout it through the rooftops because it's not said enough.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that you talk about being a first generation immigrant. Your recent post, it's really got a lot of engagement, right? You're talking about you immigrated to this country at 15, didn't
Mhm.
speak English at all. Your
Mhm.
parents, immigrated here. They don't know the education system, the work system, how we do things here in the U.S. And you just had to learn on your own. You had to network on your own. You had to learn a bunch of things on your own. So
Mhm.
your story really resonates with a lot of people out there.
Thank you. And to be honest, it's one of those posts that I was just finishing my AM workout. I posted like around 7:20 a.m. And it was supposed, I was like, oh my gosh, I have not posted this week because I've been so busy with my 9 to 5. And I was just inspired to tell that piece of my story because I've been for forever now wanting to share that part of me, just because sometimes we have that in the back of our mind, like how is that going to look for a potential employer? You potentially don't want to put too much out there of protective class. For example, in my case, I'm an immigrant, I'm also first gen, and I happen to be a person of color, which are all protected classes here in the United States. And so sometimes you don't want to put a lot of that stuff out there for employers to see because they could discriminate against you, unfortunately. However, I am in a very an amazing company that I feel super safe psychologically, and so I felt that I should share that piece of me because I know that it could resonate with a lot of people. I was shocked at how much it resonated. I didn't think it was gonna get more than 10 comments or like 20 shares or something like that. But the posts on LinkedIn that you think are not gonna do that great are the ones that usually explode, and that's the piece that you should try to feel comfortable with. Like try to share things that are relatable to people. And although the United States is such a big place and it's a melting pot, as they say, I did not expect it to be so relatable, but I am so glad that it has helped so many people feel more comfortable at sharing their story and be okay with networking.
Yeah. I want you to hold that thought there. I just want to say hi to a couple people that have been commenting here. Hi, Philip.
Love
Thank you for
it.
joining. Hi, Maria, as well. And then hi, June. Great to see you
Good.
comment here as well. So, LinkedIn, we're just a big family here. So these are my connections, but they're also Ediana's connections as well. So
Yes.
that's the beauty of posting on LinkedIn. And you just touched about this a little bit, Ediana, about content creation. It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to share your personal story. And I think a lot of people, they see LinkedIn as, oh, it's a professional platform, so you have to act a certain way or you have to be a certain way. But what are your thoughts on that? And how would you respond to people who say that?
Absolutely. And I don't want to invalidate that feeling because I've been there myself. I've been guilty of feeling that way. And I utilized LinkedIn in the beginning back in 2011 when I first made a profile on the platform. And I only utilized it as a professional way, only to attract employers or even candidates because I've always been a recruiter since I graduated college. And so I've always utilized it that way until I realized the power of content creation and how powerful it could be for you as a job seeker. And then once I started getting job offers and recruiters just knocking on my DMs, asking me if I wanted to chat with them, if I wanted to interview, I realized the power of creating content on that platform. And so I don't want to invalidate those feelings, because we all should feel a certain way and like cautious about how we show up online, period, not just LinkedIn, but anywhere else on the internet. I think that we are kind of moving towards really showing up your whole self at work. And I think that we are being more open to the idea of having you as a whole and not just as this professional. And so LinkedIn is definitely a great place to do that, because it's still in the baby stages of that, of really showing up as you. And when you do show up as you, a lot of people come out and support you, because there's not a lot of us who are sharing content to begin with. And so specifically on LinkedIn, I'm sure you know the statistics, but there's like 700 plus million users on the app, and only 1% of those create consistent content, original content to the platform. And so the possibilities are endless when it comes to content creation on LinkedIn. And just to kind of answer the question specifically, yes, you should have some reservations if you don't feel comfortable, and I don't want to invalidate those feelings, but you should absolutely get in the game of creating content on LinkedIn. And what I mean by that is you don't have to post your own work, you don't have to post your own content, but even engaging with people, even coming at lives like this one and just commenting or sharing, that is content creation for this platform. And that can really boost you up in the algorithm to potentially even come up on more searches for recruiters. So that's one thing to really keep in mind if you are a job seeker specifically.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I just want to add on to the 2 points you made. You talk about just being your authentic self. At work you can, we're a little more open now. We're being more inclusive. You can be your true self. So, it's just treat LinkedIn just like a workplace, right? So Eddiana, she's proud of being a first generation immigrant. I'm proud of who I am, where I came from, my struggles as a shy introvert who got into content creation. So if you're open with that, with your coworkers about who you are, where you came from, what your background is, it's okay to share that on LinkedIn. And it's your story. Your story resonates with people. People find things that are relatable from your experiences, from your story. So it's okay to share that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. And then your second point, you're talking about if you're scared to just start posting on LinkedIn, just start commenting, and that's a great way to sort of take that first initial step, that small step, and then just start building up confidence, right? And don't just comment saying, "Oh, great post," or "I like this." Actually, add some engagement, add some conversation, add some new ideas into the conversation, and that's just a great way to start building up your confidence in posting content on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. And to that, Stephen, I want to add as well, because not all of us are creative in that way to make meaningful comments, right? I think a way to really start very, very slowly is to just ask a question, right? To create that engagement of people trying to talk to you on the internet. So if let's say that you see a post from Stephen in this example, and you really want to say many things, but you're scared of even posting it out there as a comment because you know that it's potentially could be very public, right? You can just ask that question. Oh, Stephen, that's a really interesting point. I wonder XYZ, or what made you think this way, or how come you came up with this idea? It's just a simple way of engaging so that the person, could be Stephen or anybody else in the comments, can answer that question for you. And then you can feel a little bit less intimidated at talking to people online and just network. And that is something that I mentioned on that post is, P.S. networking is not reaching out to a person because you need a job. Engaging with people online, that is networking. It's just establishing a relationship with someone based on something that you saw on their social media platforms or something that you resonated with. The amount of people that I got on my DM just saying like, hey, thank you for saying those things. I feel the same exact way. I just thought that I was alone. And that is creating community. That is building relationships. That is networking. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is looking to get a job from me or vice versa. It just means that they wanted to let me know that they appreciated the post because of XYZ. So just get yourself out there. I know it's easier said than done. Stephen and I are both introverts, believe it or not. I'm an introvert as well. But we have to get out there because, again, you should advocate for your career and your personal brand because no one else will, unfortunately. So that's usually people ask me, like, what makes you stand out? What makes you stand out? In reality, are these little things that makes you stand out, things that not a lot of people are willing to do. Again, 1% out of 700 million people create content on here. That's how tiny little small of percentage of the population is creating content. So that is the one thing, the extra mile that other people are not willing to go. It's what's going to make you stand out as a job seeker, as a content creator, as a person, as a individual at all. Like it doesn't matter the title that you want to give yourself. It really just does help, even any little bit of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then another thing I want to add, especially for those who are getting started, you're like, okay, I started commenting on a few posts and I want to start posting consistently. Another tip I want to share is don't worry about the metrics, right? I see Eddiana's posts, they get a lot of great engagement, right? And I've been posting consistently for a few years now, and I think the perspective or the approach I have when I come to when it comes to posting for myself. When I post it, I don't worry about how many views it's going to get, how many likes or comments. But the perspective that I take is, as long as one person takes away something from it, that's all that matters to me. And when I get messages, like you said, Eddiana, when someone says, "Oh, I really resonate with your post here. I'm a shy introvert as well. It really gave me confidence," or your post, it really inspired me to start doing X, Y, or Z. So those messages just really make it worth it for me to start posting. Again, I'm not posting to make money or to get clients or what. I'm just here to help people. What are your thoughts on that, Eddiana?
Yeah, as you can see me nodding along here, I agree with you 100%. I don't make $1 out of the posts that I make on LinkedIn. And I don't offer any services. So therefore, it's really, there's no agenda there when I post my content, no agenda at all. And I agree with you when people, if it's just to help one person, I think that once you remove that stigma and that pressure out of your mind, you become more creative, you become more relatable because you're not like, oh, wait, what opener is it going to really capture people's attention? And I know that can be important down the line if you're a marketing person, or I'm super data driven because of the company that I work in. I've always been very data driven. I'm a recruiter, so I have to, right? But when it comes to my content, that goes out the window because in reality, it's what Steven is saying. As long as I help just one person, if only that one person that sent me that DM would have told me that and no one else would have seen the content, I would have still felt super awesome because I'm like, you know what? That one person who DM'd me needed that post. They needed to not feel alone anymore. And I totally agree with you. When you are starting out, it's going to take some time to get some traction, depending on how comfortable you are at writing content, depending on how comfortable you are putting yourself out there. There's certain things about like being an immigrant and all this other stuff that I know other people wouldn't have felt comfortable with sharing that. And so maybe that post, because it resonated so much, because of the area that we live in and the country that we happen to be in, somebody else might be, and that's how I started, just talking about educational things like, here's our 5 tips for your resume. And they didn't get a lot of traction because it's the same exact thing that everyone else is talking about on this platform, right? Like resume tips and interview tips and all this other stuff. But once you like kind of peel that layer, when you start peeling the onion, it's really just going to drive you through your tribe. So what I mean by that is the people that really like your content and will resonate with your content, doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 5,000. It's because they're gonna feel connected to you in some way, not just the superficial things of, here are some 5 tips to write a resume. If I were to say 5 tips to write a resume as opposed to, hey, like I have a good resume, but because my parents weren't from this country, I had to build my own network so that I could learn how to write this resume. You see the difference there, how it just resonates a little more because I'm letting you in a personal aspect of my life that makes you feel like you're my friend. Like, you're in the internet, but it makes you feel more connected. So absolutely agree with you. Please do not care about any metrics. I think that's why it's so awesome to be on LinkedIn too, because if you go to other platforms like Instagram, TikTok, they have analytics. And that sometimes makes people crazy. Like, oh, I had like 5,000 views less this week on Instagram. And that makes you double think about what you're going to be posting next because you're worried about, is this going to go viral? I want this to go viral so that I can pick my numbers back up. And I think with LinkedIn, when it comes to the content itself, you can see how many views you have and all of that other stuff. But I feel like people put less emphasis on that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So post content to help others, to build your network, but don't post it just for analytics or just for metrics here. Before we get into our next topic, I just want to highlight, we have a crazy amount of comments that came in here. Let me go through here. Want to say hi to Bruce. Thank you for joining here. Let's see here. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for joining as well. June says, show up as your full self, right? Be your authentic self on LinkedIn, in the workplace, right? If you're working somewhere where you can't be who you are, then that's just not the right place to be.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Let's see what else is there. So, yep, LinkedIn's the best personal development place on the planet. This is what Bruce said. There's so much information that you can learn from others.
Absolutely.
June said there's so much visibility when you put yourself out there. So with all of the posts that I put out, I can't predict if it's going to get 100 likes or 10 likes or 1 like or whatever. Like, you can't predict if your posts are going to go viral, quote unquote. So again, just post things out there and don't worry about the metrics. All right, let's go to our next topic here about personal branding. What are some tips for people to start defining what your personal brand is?
Yes, I love this question. And I think I've created my own personal brand around personal brands because it's a question that a lot of people ask me. And that is it. What are you known for? Personal brand is what is one thing that people identify you as. And I feel like for me, my personal brand has taken shapes in different ways because we're all multi-passionate professionals, multi-passionate people, a lot more multi-passionate than we care to admit. And that is part of your brand. So essentially, a personal brand is something that, and I believe, oh my God, the founder of Apple, I can't recall his name right now. But what he said is personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So if Steven were to leave the room right now, what would I say about him? I know that he's a shy introvert and that he loves to post content online to help other people just like him to feel more comfortable at posting online. He also does career coaching. So all of those things are part of his personal brand, right? Like, I know what he does. And anybody that comes to me and say like, hey, I'm an introvert and I'm looking for career coaching, I already know to think of Steven because that's what he's known for, right? To really just get that type of person the help they need when it comes to their career. For me, for example, now I'm dabbling into that pillar of myself of just really feeling comfortable or identifying myself as a first gen, as an immigrant to this country. And that's part of my personal brand. Before that, my personal brand was, helping moms get back to the workforce because I am a mom as well. And that was a piece of my personal brand. The tips that I have there when it comes to that is that just if you don't know what your personal brand is, because it can be hard to look at ourselves and say, what are the things that we are good at? Ask your friends, ask somebody that you trust in your life and say, hey, what are some things, some attributes that you think I have? And they can tell you that could be words or actions or any type of projects that you have done before. Like, hey, you're really organized. So you're like the organized person out of the group. Or you're somebody who coaches very well. Like when we have an issue, we go to you because you know all the answers. So you really know how to ask the questions that no one else would be able to. So that's the first step that I could give you. And when it comes to the personal brand itself, that's another piece as a job seeker to stand out because not a lot of people have personal brands. And again, if 2020 taught us anything, is that we should embrace our diversification as human beings, right? Like, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And what makes you really strong as a candidate is having that personal brand, not only like to post content or be online, but how are your past employers going to speak of you? That is your personal brand. That memory and that stamp that you leave in people every time they meet you or every time they get to work with you, that is part of your personal brand. It's like your reputation per se, like who you are as a person, if to put it in simpler words. And the reason why I'm so passionate about personal branding is because it has really served me really well in my career, as well as my personal relationships. Because it just makes it a lot easier for you to add value to someone else in their life, as opposed to just asking for things for you. And that is an asset that you can have for yourself as building that personal brand. Because a lot of people ask me as college students or even high school students, well, I don't have experience. What do I have to offer? I can't do networking because I don't want people thinking that I want something from them without me being able to give them something. Well, once you have a personal brand, regardless of your age, regardless of where you are at in your career and life, by having a personal brand, you're an expert at least in one thing. At least on one thing, you're an expert. And you can share that knowledge with people, and that can become the value that you add. Value doesn't mean that you have to mentor anybody or answer questions or give money to someone to give value. It's just your presence, your friendship, your support. All of those things can really be value add, and personal brand is most likely going to be the number one thing I always tell people to do. And you can build that again just by the relationships you build at work, potentially even bigger impact if you do create content online. But your personal brand can be something that, again, people talk about you when you're not in the room, and hopefully a positive thing, because personal branding can be both, right? It could be negative or positive. But hopefully you'll have something that people would like to recommend you for something in the future, whether that is a service that you want to offer or what a good employee you are and how that person should hire you.
Wow, that was a lot of good information there. And you said personal branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. I have a story to share. When I was at a conference a few years ago, and there was a session about personal branding, we went through that same exact exercise where, like you said, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? So we all got on the app, and then you start picking people to write what are their personal what is someone's personal brands, like what are their personal attributes, but it's anonymous, and then so at the end, you see what other people say about you. So I got words like hardworking, dependable. So I was like, okay, I was glad that it was all positive words. And you mentioned something else about, well, I don't know what my personal brand is. Go ask people. This is something that I do when I taught a personal branding workshop. I created this little grid where you with different people, right? And you say, okay, what is my personal brand from my perspective? What are 3 words I would use to describe myself? And then what will your friends say about you? What will your coworkers say about you? What would your employer say about you? And you just look across the board and see, first of all, is it consistent? Right? Are you the same type of person with your friends, but you're totally different with your employer or with your coworkers? Right? You want to make sure you have that consistency. And again, like you said, if you don't know, just ask them, right? And don't say, "Hey," just tell them, "I won't take this personally." Just 3 words, right off the top of your mind. What would you use to describe me? And if it's not what you want, then you got to work to fix it. Maybe you think you're portraying yourself as a certain type of attribute. Maybe you portray yourself as hardworking. You think you're hardworking, but your coworkers don't see that, right? They see maybe you're lazy. Then you got to go figure out why do they see you as lazy, and you can go work and fix that.
Yes. You know what, Stephen? You just mentioned something very interesting and something that I forgot I mentioned with personal branding. It's all about perception, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you are, but that's why you go out there and ask people what it is that they perceive you as, because the personal branding aspect is in the eye of the beholder, right? So the person who's seeing you from the outside, what they think your personal branding is. Like, for example, when somebody comes and asks me something about, I don't know, something that I don't talk about at all. I can't even think of it right now, but people sometimes send me DMs. I was like, sorry, I really don't do that. And so that is just a perception that they might have had, maybe a piece of content I created once, or I commented on somebody's post or something like that. But to close it off with personal branding, if you go to my profile here on LinkedIn, you'll be able to see that on my about, the first thing you see is a quote by Maya Angelou. And that is my favorite quote of all time. And it's very related to personal branding. And it says, people will forget what you say and people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that is within itself exactly what a personal brand is. Just know how you want people to feel when they're around you. What emotion do you want to evoke when they're in your presence? And that is the type of personal brand that you can work towards, because you can do an inventory about what people perceive of you and you might not like it. You might say like, oh, that's not the type of personal brand I want to put out there. Then now evaluate the skills that you are missing to make people perceive you as that thing you want them to perceive you as, right? So how do you walk away from the things that you no longer want people to tell you you are? And what are the things that are missing in between those gaps? And I think, a lot of self-reflection comes into this. It's not really easy work. It's really hard work that you have to do within yourself and ask yourself these questions that are sometimes really hard to answer. But they're really going to get you closer to where you want to be when it comes to your personal brand, and potentially even start creating content. And if you do, please tag me. I would love to see your first post if you do decide to do it after this live.
Yes, don't forget to tag me as well. So I'll be happy to support. Before we get into our last topic, just want to highlight a couple comments here. So Anthony Lee said, "Don't worry about the metrics. Just share your content, and then let the impact take place after." And then Bruce said, "Value can be your energy," and that's definitely very important, right? Don't worry about like a transactional thing. Just continuously give value, and then that's going to be all positive energy at the end of the day. For our final talk, let's spend a couple minutes here. I know you are a tech recruiter. What are some interview tips you would give people, especially for those in the tech industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll preface this by saying that all of these are my own opinions with my experience as a job seeker and are not associated with my employer. Just have to put that out there. So yeah, the best interview tip that I can give you three of them that I give everybody that asks me. And the first one is to please do your homework. Please do your homework. We can tell when you are not prepared. I know that sometimes people think that they can swing it, but it's very obvious when you do. What I mean by preparing is do so much research you can puke about the information that you find. And the reason I am saying this is because if you are obsessed with the idea of working at a company, you want the company to know that you're obsessed with them. You want them to know that. And the only way to do that is by doing research. And you can do research many different ways. Right now, with social media, we have such an advantage that it's very rare to find a company that doesn't have a social media presence. So you can stalk them that way. You can go to their LinkedIn profile. You can go to their Wikipedia page. You can go to a Google search. You can go to their YouTube channel. You can go to their website. There's just so much information out there. There's really no excuse not to do that research. Within that research, I want you to then start pulling out at people that work at that company and start making relationships with them, because that might not work for right now when you are just applying for a job, but it can help you in the future, which is why it's so important when it comes to job interviews to think about the future and have a plan for the future, as opposed to just like, I saw this job, so I'm going to apply to it, which is why a lot of people fail at job searching. They do the spray and pray method of like, they just put hundreds and hundreds of applications out there, as opposed to just really falling in love with 10 to 15 companies and doing the research in depth and go down a funnel of, okay, I really like these 15 top companies. I've done my research. I know what I want. And they happen to have a job that I really like. I started making relationships. Let's say that, I don't know, maybe 4 out of those 15 give you an interview. It's about numbers. At the end of the day, you might actually end up getting all 4, or might even 2 or 1, where you see yourself in like, you know what, I really wanted this and I worked hard for it, as opposed to sending 100 applications for different companies with the same exact profile, with the same exact resume, with the same exact LinkedIn, with the same exact boring copy paste follow-up email. That's the number one thing. I know that I said a lot of things within that one tip, but it's very, very important you do tons of research. The second thing, and those are like very mundane, be courteous. Recruiters are really busy people. And I just finished answering my 4,200 messages on LinkedIn. So not a lot of people put that much effort and time into their socials to be able to like interact and engage with community. So please be patient. I had messages in there from like the beginning of December of last year, because I've been slowly but surely kind of getting back to people as I can. So be courteous, be patient, and utilize your best judgment when you are communicating with people. Because again, your personal brand is out there. For every message you send, that's your personal brand. For every interaction you have, that's your personal brand. So sometimes even if you go through the interview process and you are not getting the job, don't send a rude email saying, whatever, I didn't want this job anyways, or I just wanted practice. Like, think about the things that could potentially affect you for the future. That's number 2. And number 3 is please know what you want. I know sometimes it's very hard to, and for me, it's hard still because I'm a multi-passionate person. So to get that narrowed down was really hard for me. But if you are applying for one company that's really your dream, and you find yourself applying for 5 jobs that are 1 for marketing, 1 for finance, 1 for recruiting, 1 for sales, 1 for tech, like, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to receive your profile and I'm going to be confused, because I was like, okay, what is this person? Like, I don't know what you want. Like, where do you want to fall under? What type of career do you want for yourself? And then it makes me think that you just want to foot in the door, which is really huge mistake that you could be making. And so that's why it's very important to have informational interviews. Informational interviews technically are like mini interviews for the job, but just to establish relationships, to ask the tough questions of saying, what don't you like about your job? What makes you, so happy about being here? Or why have they kept you this long? Because it really gives you insights into what the day-to-day could look like for them, especially if you don't know what you want. You can have 5 careers in your mind and not know where you want to go. Well, guess what? The person who's already in that career can give you so much insights to really make you understand which one you want to try out first. So I know that we're running out of time, so I will leave it there, but I could just talk about interviews forever because it's one of my favorite topics. But those are the main three things that I can really tell you to be successful in the job search and the interview process.
Yeah, no, it's okay, Eddiana. I could talk about interviews all day as well. I just wanted to add one more thing to what you said about doing your homework. The answers are right in front of you. The job description basically says what they're looking for you. So when I just got a job at Applied Materials 5 months ago, and then to prepare for the interview, I went through every single line in the job description about this is the job responsibilities. So it's like, oh, you have to. I'm just making this up, but you have to lead cross-functional project teams to deliver a product. So I better have an example from my experience where I can share how I've done that. And then if they talk about here are your skills that we were looking for, you better explain how have you demonstrated those skills. Yes, it's on your resume, but how have you written code in Python, or how have you demonstrated communication or public speaking? You have to be able to explain all those things. So definitely do your homework. Definitely prepare, because it's like Eddiana said, it's very obvious when when you don't prepare at all. It's just you can easily see it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. As we wrap up here, I want to put Eddiana's LinkedIn profile right here. I want to give you the last couple of minutes here, Eddiana, to put in your plug. I know you're a career coach, you're a speaker, you're a recruiter. What do you need help with, or how can you help others?
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. Yes, so you can go ahead and follow me or connect with me. I want to say follow me because I'm this close of like almost like 7,000 connections away from like capping out on LinkedIn. I hope that they can remove that cap. But if you see that I don't reply to you with the connection, it means that I don't have more space, unfortunately. But what I offer right now is a lot of encouragement, a lot of motivational content, a lot of educational content. I'm a teacher at heart. So I will be teaching you tons of things that I've learned myself, that I've learned with others that I've mentored. I've mentored many people in my career, and there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. So I like to teach others so that they don't make the same mistakes in that, so that they can feel heard. So that's currently what I'm doing with my personal brand in my content creation, is just putting tons of information out there that can make you feel less alone and that can be validating for you, especially as a job seeker. And the way that you can support me is by just sharing my content, commenting, engaging, and asking questions, because I sometimes, get into this mindset of like, oh, what do I talk about? Because I've talked about so many things. So just let me know what you want to hear from me, and I'm happy to do that for you. I am also in other social media accounts like TikTok and Instagram. So if you want to follow me there, I am simply Eddie. So you can follow me. I can potentially have more conversations. And I do a lot of voice memos on Instagram, and people tend to like that. So if you want to hear my voice there, I'm happy to do so as well. Thank you so much for all of the support I've had so far on this platform. I really, truly appreciate every single one of you. And remember that you have to go for it, because you just don't know what you don't know. And no one else can give you that experience for yourself. So I know that it's scary sometimes to put yourself out there, but it's going to be worth it, because you're going to go through the process and the journey, and we're here to help you through it. So put yourself out there. Let me know if you have any questions. And thank you, Stephen, again for having me as part of this amazing live series that you have here on LinkedIn.
Wow, thank you. That was a powerful message to end here. Make sure you connect or follow Eddiana on LinkedIn. She has a lot of great personable, amazing content. Really, really resonates with a lot of people. Thank you so much for joining me here. You talked about a lot about how to get started with creating content on LinkedIn, how to build your personal brand, and we also talked about interview tips. Just again, believe in yourself. Don't worry about the metrics. Don't worry too much about what the results may be. Just put yourself out there, start building your personal brand, and that will help get you different opportunities. And I also want to say thank you, everyone, for commenting. A lot of people commented as well. So thank you so much, Eddiana, for being a guest here and sharing your insights.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
You too. Have a great weekend, everyone.